next, Brian Ann, a former Ph.D. in public policy and management at USC Price, and now very recent assistant professor of public policy and finance in the School of Public Policy in the Georgia Institute of Technology, will present his work capitalizing on collective action through special districts, creation of neighborhood government institutions, and property value appreciation. So 15 minutes, Brian.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share one of my research. It was one of my dissertation chapters while I was at USC. All chapters have been published except for this one. So hopefully I can get some good feedback. Okay, let me start with some background on special districts. So this chart shows a system of local governments under USA federalism, and the numbers represent the number of the local government units. And here we are very familiar with county, city, towns, and villages, but we are less familiar with special districts. But actually, they account for more than 40% of all local governments in the states. And when it comes to special district, most people would think that they are created by private developers, for private interests, or they are created by city and county officials to circumvent tax and spending constraints. But here I focus on special districts that are created by local residents. So what is the context I'm talking about? So these are the cases where citizens initially received public services from county government, but they continuously got dissatisfied with the service delivery. So here are some quotes from the interviews I conducted. They are these community services special district managers that I'm studying. They say, hey, under county governance, the funds that were generated by our community for fire protection were not spent in our district. So they were shared with other communities, and there was no local control for fire protection. And other issues pertain to infrastructure maintenance and upgrade. Here, another manager said, under county governance, we experienced water infrastructure failures regularly. The pipelines that carried water from the main distribution reached their lifespan and were rapidly failing. So when these things happen, what these residents, specifically in California, under the state law and regulation can do is that they can dissolve the county service area, and they can propose to create a new local government called community services districts. And when the proposal gets reviewed by local agency formation commission, which exists in each county, once they get approval, then they can hold an election within their community boundary. And if they obtain majority votes, then they can create it. So that's the context I'm talking about for this specific class of special districts. And when I met and interviewed these community services district managers, they were saying, all alike, they were saying, hey, now we are doing the job better than our previous government, which was county. So why? Because if you look, it's very simple. If you look at the governing and planning structure between the county and this community services district system, under the county governance system, the governing body is actually county board of supervisors. Usually there are 5 supervisors in each county in California, and each supervisor may be responsible for multiple county service areas, mostly in unincorporated areas. By contrast, under community service district, now you have this governing body who are elected directly from your community boundary. So it's more locally representative body, and they are responsible for only one community, their own community. So now you can imagine that under this bottom-up governing structure or system, they could probably better address this tax spending nexus issue and infrastructure maintenance and upgrade issue, partly because of the enhanced accountability mechanism. So where this research stands in the literature, in research, as I said, when it comes to special districts, also in the media, they have been frequently characterized as shadow governments and institutions of private values, mostly created by private developers. Of course, there are a variety of special district types, and I'm only looking at one, but still this paper tries to provide an alternative view that the special districts, the institutions per se, doesn't necessarily to be shadow government. It depends on who create them and how they are designed and how they are used. So specifically, citizens can use special districts as institution of innovation in local service delivery. And if you remember my photos with special district managers, these special district managers, they say that they are performing better, but their claims were not backed up by the data or evidence. So that's what I'm trying to contribute to. So I used 3 sources of data. The first one is GIS shapefiles of special district boundary. Initially, I targeted 5 counties in Southern California, such as Los Angeles, Orange, San Bernardino, San Luis Obispo, and San Diego counties. And the measures, the impacts are measured through the changes in housing price changes, and the data comes from Data Create Information System, now CoreLogic, and it's available for all counties in California covering 1988 through 2012 yearly. And I cleaned the data to keep only arm's strength, fair market value transactions on single-family residential detached houses. Then you might think that probably these communities have some characteristics that initially led them to create this special district. So even though here I do not propose identification strategy to deal with selection problem, but I still control the community characteristics such as median household income, home ownership rate, vacancy rate, racial homogeneity index, and others with college degree, because these characteristics might be related to the formation of a special district and the impact on the housing price. So even though I tried the 5 counties initially, but there are some data constraints because the data should have been, the housing transaction data should have been available for this time period, and the special districts should have been formed during this time frame, and they should have been created for communities' local control, and it should serve single jurisdiction because I'm interested in community governance. So that constraints led me to choose 7 special districts in 2 counties, San Bernardino and San Luis Obispo. So when you start dissertation research, you start with these ambitions, and when it comes to data collection, you see that it gets narrowed down, and that's what exactly happened here. So these show the list of 7 special districts. You can see that these are mostly small and medium-sized communities where local collective actions are more likely to happen. And mostly they provide water, sewer, solid waste, and park and recreational services. It's not just singular service, but there is also one special district, Chino Valley Fire District, located in urban area that only specialize on fire and emergency operations. So this shows the map. So in San Bernardino County, the special districts here, orange colored ones, are actually quite in urban areas. But in San Luis Obispo County, which is more rural county, you can see that these special districts are located in rural areas. And these blue ones are the county service areas that are still receiving services from county, and they serve as comparison group, alternative comparison group, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. So what are the treatment group and control group? The treatment group is housing transactions that occurred within a special district jurisdiction, and the main control group is the transactions in the surrounding area that is within a few miles of special district jurisdiction. And I also use alternative control group, the ones that were colored in blue. So that's called comparable county service area. And on average, they are 60 miles apart from 7 special districts in my data. And this table shows housing transaction sample. Please note that these are not like Seoul or Los Angeles, really dense area. These are more or less rural and sparse area. So in order for me to match a transaction volume between treatment and control group, sometimes I had to draw the larger distance span, like 10 miles, and those are the distance band that I use to construct a control, the main control group. Okay, then I use two-level data structure. So I also use, meaning that I also use demographic characteristic. So you might curious to know who lives there, right? So these communities have inherent characteristics to create these kind of special district in the first place. So this table shows the characteristics before the district formation and after district formation. And you can see that these special district communities have higher percent non-Hispanic white, and they are more racially homogeneous communities compared to the county averages. So maybe they also show higher ownership rate. So they might explain that they had strong tendency or capacity, civic capacity to create these special districts. But when it comes to the household income, they are not actually wealthier communities. Their household income level is lower than the county averages. And this chart shows the descriptive statistics on hedonic characteristics. Here, the first one is the mean difference between treatment and control group before the district formation. And you can see that the treated groups were sold at lower premium compared to the control group, despite having better structural amenities. But once special districts were created, this is actually 4 years average before and after, you can see that now treated group shows higher price, presumably because of the district formation. And because I'm going to use difference in difference, of course, we might be worried about the parallel trends. So this shows the average housing price between the two groups in an expanded time period. And you can see that they largely it seems to be parallel with the control group showing higher price. Then at certain point, treatment group reverses the trend. But that conversion happens like 2 years before special district formation among these 7 communities. So that could be some little bit concerning. So I'm gonna examine this later. So this shows the main result for multi-level difference in difference hedonic regressions. So here I'm focusing on the interaction term, main independent variable. And you can see that the interpretation is that the communities that created special districts, the housing prices increased by 50% compared to the changes in the surrounding areas. And when I change the control group to the alternative one, where I drew housing transaction data from the comparable service area, it's still significant at 95% level, and the magnitude virtually remains the same.
Brian, you have 2 more minutes.
Great. So now I lead and lag the formation years. I treat as if the special districts were actually created 4 years before and after than the actual formation date, and we shouldn't expect to see the significant price effects, and that's the case here. And what about the effects over time? When the district was created, virtually there is no effect. Then price increases to like 10%, not significant, and it gradually increases. And this one is what I reported earlier in the table. and it becomes statistically distinguishable from 0 after 4 years. Unfortunately, data doesn't span beyond 4 years for the 7 special districts, but you can see that it takes time for us to see the price effects. When I use the alternative control group, virtually the pattern remains the same. The price increases over time and it remains stable over the first 4 years after the districts were created. So regarding briefly discussion and conclusion, so this research shows that institutional choice and design matters for the impact of local service delivery in local communities. Specifically, the community service district showcases that bottom-up approach can yield a greater impact than top-down county authority service arrangement. And this might be an important finding given what we see with other traditional community development and economic development institutions like tax increment financing district and business improvement districts where there is growing accountability concerns. So future work can probably survey the satisfaction of residents rather than just using housing transaction data. And also future work can push the thinking on how these bottom-up governing and planning structures can actually be applied to other traditional community and economic development and planning institutions. Let me finish here and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Brian. Now we have questions, I believe. I think Manita, you may have a question.
Hi, Brian. I thought it was a really good presentation. I was just concerned about, I was actually thinking about if you thought about any efficiency related issues when you have multiple overlapping governments and the kind of efficiency concerns that fragmentation brings.
So, hi, Manita, are you questioning whether there is any overlapping special district, overlapping jurisdictions among these communities?
Yeah, because if CSDs are overlapping with general purpose governments, and then you also have other kinds of special districts, and then you have the county government. So that increases the fragmentation of governments a lot. So how does that kind of square up with efficiency concerns?
So actually those questions were, that's really good questions. But for these 7 districts, they are probably quite different from what you are familiar with because these are really small and medium-sized communities. So to my knowledge, I checked on this before and actually there is no overlapping special districts. So basically, most of them are in rural communities and water and sewer and trash pickup is the most essential public service they need the most. So other than that, I know that they do some contracting with county authority like for fire protection, but other than that, to my knowledge, there is no concern about overlapping jurisdiction, which we typically have for like highly dense and urban areas.
All right, thanks.
Perfect. We have time for one more question, quick question from anyone.
I have a question, Jorge. Thanks, Brian, for that presentation. With the caveat that this is not my area of expertise, I guess one concern that I have, and maybe to some extent this relates to the issue that Manita was just raising, but my understanding is that one of the concerns around fragmentation would be that it not only impacts the, sort of the location in your case that is contained within this special district, but also service delivery in other parts of the larger jurisdiction. So, for example, Beverly Hills can create a successful school district by separating itself from the city of LA, but the question there would be what's the impact on schools in the rest of LA, not what's the impact of schools within Beverly Hills. So I just wondered if you sort of thought about the potential issues that would be caused by the creation of these special districts outside their boundaries. And I guess this also relates to your empirical strategy because your control group is surrounding areas. So what gives you confidence that the creation of these special districts does not impact the geographic areas outside their boundaries?
Yeah, thank you for really nice question, Greg. I don't have that specific, I don't have the exact answer to your question based on my data analysis, but I think that's a really important one. But one thing I wanted to note is that the context of this creation of special district in these communities is that they think they don't deserve, they didn't think they deserve what they should, given the taxes they pay for. So I guess fragmentation, there is normative argument about, in the public choice literature, whether fragmentation is good or bad, depending on where you stand. But from just for thinking about these residents, they were so frustrated with this service delivery practice. So let's create our own. So that's good for them, but does it compromise the other areas? I don't think so, but I think that's open question for further analysis and research questions. And thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, thanks so much, Ryan.